Hello and welcome to the Opportunity Live podcast. I am Miko and I am very grateful that today I can introduce Graham Nicholls to my podcast. And he is a NLP, Neuro-Linguistic Programming, EFT, emotional frequency tapping expert. And he also specialized in human behavioral patterns. This is a term he calls himself because it's a bit more broad than just life coach, which is quite interesting to me. And if you would like to say a little bit more about yourself, you're welcome to go ahead.
Thank you, and thank you for inviting me on your podcast. It's great to be here. I use specialize in emotional patterns because I go a lot further than standard life coaching would, and I've studied an awful lot more about people and their life, their patterns that they run in their lives through their beliefs, their fears, their values, and that's what I help people with, and that's how I help people. And I've kind of transformed that into also helping through recording online courses as well as coaching people one-on-one.
Yes, that is actually how we, not met, but how I got to know from you about I did the EFT coaching program or master program on Udemy. And I was super fascinated about it because you are really teaching and an awful more amount of stuff that you actually promote in it. So how did you even get to this idea to start EFT, or how did you from the beginning always go into this direction of coaching people or helping them to maximize their lives, as you call it?
For life coaching purposes, I started about 20 years ago. I was diagnosed with stress, anxiety, and depression all at the same time, about a little over 20 years ago. And the doctor prescribed me some drugs and said that, they'll help you, but it might take about 3 months for them to start working. And I simply didn't want to wait 3 months. And I realized that I didn't really know enough about those conditions to just give in and take drugs. So I put the prescription away, or threw it away, to be honest, and decided I wanted to find out more about those conditions, which led me to life coaching, which led me to NLP. And what I realized was if I could help myself, which I did, I could then go on and help other people. And from a young age, I was always told that I was a good listener, and I always wanted to help. So it seemed like a natural pattern for me to follow in and help other people. EFT, the tapping actually came about via trying to help my wife. My wife has a very severe spinal injury from a car accident over 30 years ago. And she takes lots of medications every day just to keep her moving and reduce her pain. And we wanted something that, because she can't take any more tablets, she's on the maximum amount she can take. We wanted something that was a bit more natural to try and help her reduce her levels of pain. So about, 6-7 years ago now, I was doing some research on more holistic therapies and came across tapping. And I started with thought field therapy, or TFT, which is where tapping started. And that developed into an interest into EFT, which is the next evolution of it. And it helped her with her pain. But what I found was it helped with many other conditions as well, from depression and anxiety and anger and frustration and stress. And then more than that, it helps people just to generally feel better. It can help reduce fears. It can help break limiting beliefs. It can help you feel better, have more energy in general. And the path just carried on from there into the courses that I create, and I work one-on-one with people, and as EFT is just part of that I can bring.
So do you feel like your personal depression and stress reduced even further with EFT, or did you find something that helped you before that already?
I found something that helped me before that. I found how my patterns work, and therefore how I could change them. And that's kind of what led me on to specializing in human behavioral patterns. What I did find was the EFT, when I was working with my wife with it, it would relax me an awful lot more. So it's very useful for relaxation. You can combine it with meditation to relax you down as well, and that benefits me every day. Absolutely, that I use that to relax it every day.
And how does your wife feel now? Does she feel, is she still on the medication, or how do you guys work together in both of these aspects, from your side and also from your wife?
Yeah, unfortunately, with it being an accident and she has because of her injury, it's not pain that's ever going to go away for her. But we use it to reduce her levels of pain. If she has a severe flare up or something along those lines, we use it to reduce her levels of pain, and that can have an effect for anything up to a couple of hours, which just lets her get over that kind of the hump of the pain and then start to come back down again.
Wow, that's really great. I mean, also, this is one aspect that you also talk a lot about in your course as well. You mention it, but I can see the love that you have for your family, and you also have a daughter, as I heard in the course.
I do,
And
yeah, 14 years old.
wow. How did your wife go through this then? Because the accident was 30 years ago, and then she was able to get a daughter still. That must have been a challenging time, no?
It was a challenging time. I wasn't with my wife at that point, so my daughter is actually my stepdaughter. But as far as we're concerned, I'm her dad. She's my daughter. But it was a challenging time for her. She was told she would never have kids, and obviously she had to have a C-section to give birth. But she managed to do it, and my wife's quite an inspiration to me. The doctors told her that she would never walk again. They told her she would need to give up on her business, and she just told them, no, I'm not doing that. And she still runs a business to this day, helping people to learn to ride horses and rescuing horses. And she doesn't live her life in a wheelchair. She walks around. So she's a very
Wow.
inspirational woman.
Oh, this sounds amazing. Great. I hadn't heard that story yet, so I'm happy to hear it. I saw on your website that you wrote a book about anxiety and depression. How did you combine these two in one book? Because I feel like the modern medicine sees it very separately, and they probably also prescribe different drugs for them. So how come you put both of these things together?
What I found was that conditions such as anxiety and depression and stress are all very, very much linked. Yes, you're right. Modern medicine will tell us that they're separate and they'll give us a different medication for each of them. But the truth is that they are emotional patterns that we run, and they run in our nervous system and they run in our unconscious mind. But they are all linked. They all follow a similar pattern. And if I was to give you an example, there are 4 ways of looking at an emotion, if you like. So if you imagine holding your left hand up in front of you, and on your first finger there, you put a P for palm, and that's your physical association to an emotion. So we all have a physical association. So if we think about depression, the physical association is generally down, head down, shoulders down. If you think about anxiety, it's all very tight. If you think about frustration, or anger, it's very tight. So that's a physical association. On the middle finger is A for attention. So what we pay attention to, that directs our emotions. If we're paying attention to things that make us depressed, well, of course, we're going to feel that way. If we pay attention to things that make us angry or frustrated, we're going to feel that way. If you then go on to the ring finger, L is for language. So you imagine what we're saying to ourselves. If we ask ourselves really poor questions and say things to ourselves about how rubbish we are, well, then we get poor answers. To give you an example from my life, the question I used to ask myself whenever anything went wrong was, why does this always happen to me? And you can imagine I got a really poor answer out of that. And the answer I usually got was, because you're useless and you deserve it. So I just felt like I was useless and I deserved to feel this bad. And then finally, on the little finger there, that's the meaning that we create. Well, from those questions that we ask, we create a meaning. And that is the meaning I got, was I was useless and deserved it. That's the meaning I created. So I call that the palm psychology method. So PALM is palm psychology. And if we change any one of those, we can start to change our emotional state. So if we're depressed and we change our physical association to depression, so instead of being down and slumped down and shoulders forward, we go out for a walk or a run, or we put some music on and dance about like an idiot, I don't know. We change how we feel in that short space of time. But then if we change what we're paying attention to as well, and we start to focus on good stuff instead of bad stuff, all of a sudden we're making a real shift. If we change the language, the questions that we're asking, so in my life, instead of asking, why does this always happen to me? I could ask a question like, how can I stop this happening to me and make myself feel better? And all of a sudden I have a different answer. And the meaning changes with that question. So what I discovered was anxiety, depression, stress, anger, frustration, whatever you want to call it, all fit nicely into that palm psychology pattern, if you like.
That's true. Absolutely. I completely agree with that. So what, because I've had a friend that told me the other day that she thinks very black and white, and she doesn't know how to get out of this. And I gave her a few suggestions, but I would love to hear what you would suggest a person like that. What could you tell them to adjust their way of thinking?
Yeah, sure. So black and white thinking in CBT, or cognitive behavioral therapy, we call that a cognitive distortion. And black and white thinking is one of about 9 or 10 recognized cognitive distortions. And you're absolutely right. People think it's either yes or no, or it's one way or the other. What I would suggest is asking your friend to or come up with some different choices, some different perspectives on how to look at things. If you imagine looking at a cardboard box, but you're only looking at it from one end, you only see that end, you only see that color. If you move around to the side of it, it might be longer, it might be different colors down the side. If you look at it from the top, it'll be different. We need different perspectives. If we only have 2 different perspectives, then we've only got 2 choices. If we have 100 different perspectives, we have 100 different choices. If we choose a different meaning, if we say, what else could this mean? And ask ourselves a different question, we can create different meanings, and then we can choose one. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. So this would have to be done before, though, because within the moment of being in a situation, it would be difficult to think to yourself, okay, I need to change my perspective now. Or do you think this is still possible in the situation itself?
No, I think it's very possible. Again, in CBT, we use something called the pause button, where we literally just stop and we say to ourselves, stop, what else could this mean? Or stop, how else could I look at this? How else could somebody else look at this? How else could, you could ask her how she thinks you would look at that particular situation, how a famous film star might look at the situation. It doesn't matter. We can create so many different things in our minds, but if we hit that pause button and just say to ourselves, stop, how else could I see this? What else could this mean? And then you've got a choice.
Great. Yes, that's great advice. That's already a good tip to include into everyone's lives.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And then my next question is, do you generally consider yourself a happy person?
I do consider myself a happy person. I'm very fortunate that I am able to do something in life that I absolutely adore doing, which is helping people. I'm very fortunate that I have a wife and a daughter that I love completely, and they love me. And I'm grateful for that every day. And for me, the one thing that I can do every day to make sure I'm a happy person is be grateful for everything that I have. And whether that's the things that I do for a living, whether that's my family, whether that's walking my dog first thing in the morning, or the sunshine or the rain, it doesn't matter. If I can be grateful for something, then my heart is filled with happiness.
So this would also be the thing that you would suggest to everyone to include into their lives, if you could?
Absolutely. If you could include one thing in your life, it would be gratitude. Even if you can find gratitude in the smallest of things, you can find gratitude in the biggest of things. So if you can find gratitude in how a flower looks in the morning, then you can find gratitude in the biggest things you can have in your life, or the most difficult of situations. And if you can find gratitude in the most difficult of situations, there's nothing you can't cope with.
I really like what you just said.
Thank
If
you.
you
Which
look at the
part?
small things, and can be grateful for the small things, then the big things, it kind of accumulates to a big picture.
Correct.
And
Absolutely.
in the end, you just walk around and you see everything is beauty around you.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And listen, I'm a big fan of Dr. Wayne Dyer, and in one of his books, I read that the first words out of his mouth every morning are thank you. Thank you for this day. Thank you for waking me up. Thank you for me being alive. That sort of thing. If you can imagine waking up every morning just saying, yep, thank you for another day. What a great way to start the day. And that's years ago when I first read that absolutely led into my life.
Wow. Oh, that's like bumps. Who else inspired you in your life? Who would you say, okay, these people have really struck a nerve with me?
So Dr. Wayne Dyer is one of them. I'm a big fan of Tony Robbins and the way he reaches out and touches so many people's lives and helps so many people. I've already mentioned my wife. My wife inspires me every single day. My daughter inspires me to smile every single day. But I could read, I've so many books I've read that have inspired me. Daniel Goleman, who started or first wrote about emotional intelligence, is such a powerful book. Dr. Callahan, who started the thought field therapy and actually started the tapping, again, such an inspiring book. The list is never ending, I can assure you. And to be honest, there's an awful lot of my clients that inspire me as well, because they come to me and they're struggling at that time, and we work together, and they make the changes in their life. I don't ever make a change in anybody's life, well, apart from my own. My clients make the changes in their own lives. I'm just there along for the journey. And when I see people change, and I see them change their lives and improve their lives and become who they want to be, that inspires me as well.
Very nice. I think you found your calling.
I am very fortunate that I did indeed.
If you had a time machine and you could go back to when you first started to be diagnosed as depressed and anxious and stressed, would there be anything that you would tell yourself that you now, which you would have liked to know earlier, which you would have found out about earlier?
Well, great question. Do you know what? I don't think there would. And the reason I say that is we all have to go on a journey. And if it wasn't for my journey, I wouldn't be where I am today. If it wasn't for my journey, I wouldn't know what I know. I wouldn't have the life that I have. My life would be completely different. If I hadn't gone through those tough times of feeling that way, then I wouldn't have come out of those and gone on to find life coaching and NLP and everything else that I've learned over the years. So I'm not sure I would. I'm quite happy with my journey, even though it's been tough in many, many times across the years. I think we grow out of tough times. So no, I don't think I'd change anything.
Very good. There is no right answer, but I like that answer.
Okay.
If you so you would suggest that gratitude is the one thing that everyone should include into their lives.
Absolutely,
I think that we made that clear from a few minutes ago.
Sure.
But is there any way that you personally do it, or is it more just in the act, like when you're out with the dog, or do you actually wake up in the morning and say thank you, or is there a time that you take aside to do it, or write a gratitude journal or something like this?
Yeah, so I always say thank you in the mornings as I'm getting up, and I always say thank you when I'm walking the dog in the mornings. But particularly at nights, just before I go to bed, I write a journal, and I write about what's happened that day. I ask myself every day, what have I learned about myself today, so that I can grow a little bit each day. And then the last part of that journal is about gratitude, and at the moment it's being grateful for myself and my family being kept safe, with what's going on around the world, but also, the opportunities that I have to help other people. So yeah, I write in my journal the things I'm grateful for.
Okay, great. Is there anything else you would like to add or tell the listeners? Anything that's on your heart that you feel like people should know at the moment?
Particularly at the moment with what's going on around the world, it's very tough, and there's a lot of worry and concern and stress and a lot of loss as well. And I'm a big believer in the saying that this too shall pass. And this too shall pass. And yes, people will lose people, and it's, my heart goes out to everybody who's lost somebody, or everybody who's, in the midst of what's going on. But I really do believe that this too shall pass, and my hope and belief is that the world will change for the better for it in the end. I think people are finding a different way to live. They're finding that they can spend more time with their family and maybe work from home a bit more. They're finding that they can be a bit more polite and a bit more pleasant around other people. You go shopping at the moment, if people are just generally seem more polite, more pleasant. And I think that coming out of this, the world will be just just a little bit of a better place. At least that's my hope.
I share that hope, and I'm sure it will. I feel like everything is going upwards. People are spending more time in nature, and
Absolutely.
I think things are looking up.
Yes. Yeah, I think so too.
Great. Then thank you so much for this opportunity
You're very
for this
welcome.
interview. And I really hope that I share your passion of helping others living a happier and healthier life. And I'm hoping that this has helped. If any one of the listeners would like to know more about Graham Nicholls, he has a website, thepriorityacademy.com. And he has just brought out a book, which is called Life Evolution, 37 Strategies to Improve Your Life. Ah, very good. You're prepared.
Yep, I was prepared.
Perfect. Yes. So if you're interested in improving your life in any way, it's not just about anxiety or depression or stress. It's an overall concept of improving your life. And I think I will even order it. I'm very interested in seeing what is in there. And if you want any course from him, please visit his website. I am a big fan of it, and I can only hope for the best in your future. And thank you very much for this.
Well, thank you very much for your time, and I wish you all the best as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.